He's worthy of our worship because he's the creator, because he's a redeemer. The very nature of God shows the worthiness that he has for our worship. What about Deuteronomy chapter 6? What do we learn in Deuteronomy?
That we're to love God with our heart, our soul, and our mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're supposed to love God with all of our heart, soul, and mind. We cannot worship God if we don't have love for God. We looked into the idea of what does that love look like? And it's not just any ordinary type of love. And that it's a love that spurs from all of our heart, soul, and mind. What about Exodus 20? What do we end on Sunday in Exodus 20? Yes. And what is he jealous of? Yeah, he doesn't want us worshiping anything else other than him. Brace made the comment, the distinction on envy versus jealous, and that jealous is actually an appropriate term to use for God, as we kind of made the correlation that the earthly feeling we usually feel when we want something somebody has, or kind of that feeling is more of an envy feeling, where jealous it's not a bad thing for God to be jealous in the way that he is. Because of his worthiness, because of the love he has for us, he wants the worship from us. He wants our worship, and not worship to others. So those are the three main points we hit on Sunday. So let's go ahead and reference number 4 here. It says, it's a common struggle for man to worship the things of the world and focus less on worship to God. We're alluding back to that Exodus passage. Through the scriptures that we have reviewed, reflect on your relationship with God and analyze where you're at. Now I want to stop there real fast and see if anybody had taken time to kind of reflect on where you at with your personal relationship with God, and how you've correlated that to the way that you worship today. And through what we've talked about so far in the very few lessons we've had, has there been any changes, or has there been any thoughts you've had that need to change? And I understand this is kind of personal, so we don't really have to talk about it much, but if anybody's willing to share maybe just a thought or two, we could talk about that a little bit.
I was thinking about this, and I really appreciated seeing the differences in the words of worship.
Yeah.
It helps me to understand deeper, because when we just get in the habit of, I'm going to worship, or we're worshiping, we are habitual and traditional in how we do that.
Yeah.
And sometimes we lose the meaning and the intent just to, fall on your face before and to, kiss your hand. I really love the analogy of a dog.
Yeah.
A dog to a master. I mean, you can just see the adoration and love that a dog that is in that creature, and to compare that to our worship to God, sometimes we just kind of mail it in.
Yeah. Fair enough.
At least I do.
Yeah. And kind of going off that lesson that Brace did give, talking about how us as humans, right, in the English translations, we've kind of had a set definition for it, to where I think Aaron, I'm glad he took something out of it, to where we look at the original root word of what Brace proclaims, that the Holy Spirit is meant for worship to look like. It does open up a different outlook on it. It does show us that, and I like that analogy too. For those of us who have had dogs, I get home and my dog is one of them. The other one only wants bones and toys and not anything to do with me. But the other one, every time I get home, he's solely focused on me. He's glad I'm home. There's nothing else in the world that he cares about, that I'm home, and all his attention's on me. And we take that analogy to our worship to God, and we should have all of that focus, all of that passion, all of that energy into that worship, right? Into God, meaning we could take it as we are the dog, he is the owner, right? And we should be excited that every time he comes, back into our life, and every time that we're surrounded by God again, it's that same excited feeling where we're focused on it, where we're engaged with that worship. Any other thoughts? Let's go ahead and get to the question here then. So since we've reflected that, let's answer this question. Why is it important that we worship God alone? and reflect on the things that you have worshiped in your life. And I think it's okay to say that. It sounds harsh, but if you look back on your life, and I look back at mine, I'm not very old. I think most people know that, but there are some times that I've put things in place of God in my life, and I can look back and say that wasn't the right way to do that. So reflect on those things and reflect on what you know about God now and the way we worship Him. Why is it so important that He is the only one that we worship? Go ahead, Salem.
When I initially read this question, the first thing I thought of was in Matthew 6:24. It's Jesus talking, and he's talking about money. But I think we could plug in
Anything.
whatever you
Yep.
struggle with. But he says, "No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money."
Yeah.
So I think the point of that is kind of like one of them is going to get the short end of the stick 9 times out of 10 because we're human, it's God.
Yep.
And so you just can't split your attention like that.
Yeah.
And like you have to make sure that he is constantly the priority and at the forefront of whatever you're doing.
Yeah, and I like that passage a lot because you look at it and say, if there's anything in place, whether it be money, fame, anything like that, I think 9 times out of 10, that's going to win over God. We are, as humans, very pleased by human or earthly things, right? We're very invested in earthly treasures and earthly things to where, we put our focus on that. Like the passage in Matthew says, one's going to get neglected and one's going to get all your focus. And you may end up neglecting God, right? If you are serving other things, if you put things in place of God, you're ultimately neglecting Him and neglecting your relationship for Him. Does that make sense? Joy, go ahead.
In teaching last quarter, we were in the Old Testament, we were talking about idolatry, and growing up, I was sure that it helped me to see it simplified downstairs because it really made it register better.
Yeah.
But I was sure that idols were those statue things, and I thought, well, I'm not going to worship that.
Right, yeah.
I'm sure I'm never going to worship that.
Yeah.
But there's so many things that are included in idolatry.
Yeah.
Tons of
Oh, yeah.
things. Anything that's ahead of God is an idol.
Yeah. That half the time we don't even realize. We're never going to even think, oh, this is going to hinder me from my relationship with God. But I think that's a fair analogy. I mean, I think growing up, I was the same way, and I'm sure a lot of us were like, oh, idols, I would never worship a statue or whatever. I'm not going to do that, but Joy, you're right. I mean, there's so much out there, especially with technology nowadays and all the things we have access to, and as, things keep developing over time, there's so much to distract us from God. And ultimately, it will, at some point, we will find ourselves in those situations. Chet, do you have something?
Yeah, I was thinking back, I don't remember what year it was, but I worked 7 hours, or 7 days a week, 11 hours a day. What did I gain by that?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Really, because I forsake God and didn't serve God. And it says here, worship God alone.
Yep.
That's the only one that's going to give us any reward
Yeah.
when our life is ended.
Yep.
That we would have that hope with Him to live eternally.
Yeah.
Him and Jesus and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. These little things on earth that we can fill our time with and fill our, find happiness in are all temporary. I think that's what you're getting at. It's all temporary stuff. And the only thing that's going to give us eternal satisfaction and eternal glory is God Himself. Nothing else can give that to us. And my grandfather always used to tell me growing up, and I'm sure it's a pretty common phrase, it's this idea that if you've missed heaven, you've missed it all. Right? If you miss out on heaven, you've missed absolutely everything. The point of your life is meaningless. And the fact of the matter is, and what truly worship is about, is a life in service to God, and that's the only meaningful life we could have. The only meaningful life we could have is worship and service to God, and He will reward us greatly for that. We will not be disappointed in what we can be rewarded with that. Reward is a word I didn't find myself tripping over, and now I am. I don't know. Joy? What?
The more I know about what God's done, the more
Oh, yeah.
I mean, none of that other stuff deserves what he deserves.
Yeah. That goes back into his worthiness. I mean, and I think what you're getting at, I look back at my life and sometimes I don't realize it in the moment, but like where I got in certain situations or how certain things played out, down the road, I'm like, he definitely had a hand in that. He definitely made that happen. And there's nothing else that could do that the way he does. I think that's what Joy's trying to recognize there. Once again, goes back to, it's so important for us to recognize how worthy God is of our praise, of our worship. Anything else on, yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I heard a lady one time, she's either talking about her husband or her boyfriend. She said, I worship the ground he walked on.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, you sort of would think about what she was saying.
Yeah. You know, there's only one footstep on this planet that we should ever worship the ground they've walked, and that's Jesus Christ, not our boyfriends or girlfriends, right? Not meaning that we can't have a whole lot of value for our spouses and those people closest to us, but Jim's right. There's only one person worthy of worshiping the ground they walk on in that sense.
To answer your question, that why is it important that we worship God? If you look at it in the Gospels, it talks about the vine dresser pruning the branch. Well, and a lot of times if you prune bushes and flowers, some of it is still active, but it's withering or it's dying, and it's being a drag on the host.
Yeah.
And so when you look at this in Scripture, the vine dresser pruning, how many people are just wandering through playing church?
Yeah.
Just habitually doing church that truly aren't worshiping. And at some point, how does God, truly prune that vine that's really not producing fruit?
Yeah, they can be present but not active, present but not a part.
So do we run a risk if we don't fully worship? Do we run a risk of being that withering branch that, yeah, we're still attached, but we're not truly providing benefit for the host?
And I think the mindset with people like that is they're worshiping. It goes back to, oh, I go to worship, right? I'm there. That's what I need, right? That's checking my box. That's getting me what I need. I think Aaron's got a point in, to worship God alone means you're not only present, but you're active. You're not only present, but you're participating. You're not only present, but you're engaging in it. And I think it's very risky if you run that life of I'll show up and, make sure people can see me there, know I'm there, but what effort are you putting in at the end of the day? Valid point. Anything else before we move on to our questions on the back? Already almost 20 minutes in. That's crazy. Okay, now we can get to Wednesday. We were in Sunday. Let's get back to Wednesday. Now that we know more about the one who we worship, let us look into some questions that challenge our everyday routines and priorities regarding what we value most in life. Answer these questions and be ready to discuss. Question 1, how does knowing God affect the way we worship Him? And if you need some clarification on this question, I'm willing to give that. But how does knowing God, truly knowing God, affect the way that we worship? And I think we just hit on a little bit there. But what does this look like to you?
In the first place, we can worship according to his will. Knowing him will do that.
Yeah.
He requires that we worship a little closer to him than we know him. It helps us resist temptation, and it brings comfort and peace to our hearts. We understand the consequences of, when we know God, we understand his love as well as the consequences.
Right.
of not following him. And there's so many ways you can answer that question, so many places you could go.
There is. And I think you hit a good amount of them, which is great because that is the focus on it. It is truly knowing God. It gives us more knowledge. It gives us more understanding. It gives us more comfort in what we're doing. Like Margaret said, if you know God, you should be able to understand His will and what He asks us to do. and understand that, when he asks us to do something, the importance of acting on that. I think that's a big part of it for sure. Go ahead, Chip.
It kind of makes you wonder, like, how many more people would be in church in the world if they knew who God was. Instead, people were just like, church isn't for me.
Yeah.
It's not moral enough, and
Yeah.
things like that. And
Yeah, for sure. I mean, having the chance to know who God is, spend some time in creating a relationship with him will change your life. It will change your life. And I think you're honest, how many people would be more engaged in not only church, but their own relationship with God and worship to him and understanding of this if they took the time to know him. And I think Chip's right that if people don't take time to know him, we're shown that they don't participate. They're not active. They don't live the way that they're supposed to live. I think that's a fair thing to say. Go ahead.
Truly knowing God also makes me more of a tangible being, because when you're a kid and you think of God, it's like, oh yeah, God's up there and he's just kind of like the big guy upstairs. Like, I don't know about that. And like, you're taught to talk to him, but you don't really understand it. But truly knowing God is knowing the love he has for you and the relationship that he wants with you. It makes him more of a tangible being,
Right.
rather than just this like mystic, airy, there but
Yeah.
not close.
Yeah, it's easier to get on more of a personal level with God. It's like, I know you because you're my wife and you're a part of my everyday life. You can have that same relationship with God, that I know God. He's a part of my everyday life. I communicate with him. I have conversation with him. I let him know what's going on. And he impacts my life in this way at this time and all that kind of stuff. I think that's, yeah, if you don't know who God is, you won't ever get to see what that personal connection looks like. He might always be a far distant being that, I don't even know where to start on trying to create a relationship with this guy. And because, I can think back when I was a kid, it's like, wow, it's crazy that he's all the way up there. He built everything. He's, not here, but he is here. And but if you truly know God, then it becomes second nature. God's been a part of my life for so long and I've devoted my life to him for so long to where it's like, it's just a part of my life. It's normal. And I think it's okay to have normalcy in your relationship with God. I think you should have normalcy in your relationship with God. And that goes back to, do you know who he is? Have you taken the time to get to know who he is? Because he sure is taking the time to get to know who you are. And, he deserves for us to do the same. Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, knowing God who he really is, it's good to know that the Bible says our God is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. Our God is a consuming fire.
Yeah.
Know that about him, it'll cause you to want to worship him in the right way.
Yeah, true that. That's true.
And you know that you can depend on his promises
Oh, absolutely.
as well as the consequences.
Oh, yeah. If you truly know God and have a relationship with him, then I have confidence in God that he's going to pull through to versus someone who hasn't really spent that much time with him or in their relationship with God where it's like, I don't know if he's capable of doing what I need him to do. Or something. I think Margaret's on a point, having confidence in God goes a long way. Brace?
If worship is essentially a response to worthiness, then the more we know God, the more we realize there's no one more worthy
Oh, yeah.
of worship and honor and praise than he is.
Yeah.
Even if we drop the whole thing that he's created everything, including us, no one has been more active, involved, and actively seeking your well-being in your life than God has. No one.
Yeah.
Your parents did a whole lot for you growing up. You and Emily are going to do a lot for each other going forward. But no one has ever done more for you than God has. And he's not going to stop today. He's going to continue to do that throughout your life. So no one is more worthy than he is.
And I think that sparks some emotional feelings. So when you do get to take the time to know that, how much that impacts your own life, how much you learn to not only respect, but like Ray said, how can anybody else come close to what he's done? And I don't know what I'm trying to say. How magnificent he is. That's what I was trying to say. And how glorious he is, and just how awesome of a God he is. There's tons of worship songs that show it's all about how wonderful he is, how awesome he is. And that statement has never been more true, and it will always stay more true than anything else. Chet?
It also shows us that God is premier, that he gave his son to redeem us, to make it possible for us to have a relationship with him,
Yeah.
and Jesus and the Holy Spirit.
Yep.
And we need to stick to that. And we do that by studying the Word,
Yep.
knowing the Word, and applying it to our lives, not only just knowing it, but applying it.
Yep. And that's all part of having a relationship with him. It's all part of that process. Joy?
Chet just said what I had on my mind is that knowing his investment in me is going to affect my investment in him.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's a really cool way to put it. Because you think of, even in a workplace or in a family, like the investment someone makes in a new employee or a child just to grow them and nurture them into what they soon become, there's no greater example than that. I think what Chet and Joy has said, God has a huge investment in us. He paid his son for us, and he continues to be with us every single day. And if that doesn't spark emotional feeling of wanting to have a deep connection to him, and then if that doesn't want you to get down on your knees and praise him even more, then I don't know what will. But God's investment in us is huge. Anything else on that question? Going back to Exodus 20, let's talk about some things that, we've mentioned it before. What are some things that people put in place of God in worship? What are some things in your life that you've seen that can be struggles? Or what is a common thing that just most people struggle with?
What I did was work.
Yeah,
Come, spend 11 hours a day,
right.
7 days a week.
Yeah, I think professional, jobs and stuff like that is a huge thing. If you put that, there's a huge opportunity for you to be able to put your work as the center point of your life. You eat, breathe, sleep, work. There's got to be a balance between that. And I've learned that as getting in the professional world. But yeah, I think what you do for a living can definitely hinder you from your relationship with God. Bryce?
And as much as that's true, work may not necessarily be the God.
Yeah.
It may be your own ego. It may be money.
Yeah, the benefits of work.
I mean, typically it's something other than, and that's the thing we've got to get to the root of sometimes is we want to deal with the symptoms instead of the problem.
Right.
And so ultimately, a huge problem, a huge thing that gets put in place of God is me.
Yeah.
And that's so many people are their own God because it's what they want. It's what drives them that is important to them. And you see it in the decisions that they make.
Yeah. Got to that point a lot quicker than I thought, but that's so true. We can hinder ourselves from God a lot more than we realized. We can be the separation between us and God, whether it be through work, whether it be through anything else. We can be the motivating factor of, we're making things line up in life to push us away from God. I keep getting into this because I know I'd rather do this and I'd rather be pushed away from God, and this will allow me to do it. I think that's a fair thing to say. Scary thing to say, I think. It's hard to think about that. Joy?
And thinking about that, I thought, typically what I do is, where's the most immediate payoff?
Yeah.
Which goes right back to what Grace said, it's about me.
Yeah. Where am I going to gain the most? Where am I going to benefit the most from?
Because sometimes, well, a lot of times actually, the payoff from God may not be immediate. It
Yeah.
may not be until eternity.
Yeah.
But, I'm into this right now stuff.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I struggle with most. I'm very impatient. I want things now. I want the reward now. I want the benefit now. And if you want to be a Christian, if you want to be a good child of God, if you want to be in a healthy relationship with Him, you have to be patient. You have to let God do things on God's time. You have to let Him work in the way He works. Bryce?
Here's the thing we got to be careful about is because I think we typically think of meism as materialism or we know selfish people, and selfish people are not really people we want to hang around.
Yeah.
But we can be we can be our own God and look very religious. The Pharisees did it. They were really good at it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, they appeared to be really religious to the people, the Jewish people of the first century.
Yeah.
But they were in it for what they could get out of it.
Right.
And not for the relationship with God.
Yeah.
We've got to make sure we don't do the same thing in a different way as members of the church.
Yeah.
Because we can become so enamored by our place, whatever that is, whatever that looks like to us, whatever that means. I mean, you can be a philanthropist and be selfish
Right.
because you like to be generous and give it away, and it's because of what you get out of it.
Yep.
So we've got to be really careful. I've got to be really careful.
Right. It can be really easy to cover it up too, like they did. Like I can come here and I can lead singing and I can teach class and I can preach even and I can do all these things without you truly knowing. I can hide my life from you, and that spurs back to how much do we really know each other? And I think that plays a part in it as well. How much do we really know each other and can keep each other accountable on our own relationships with God? Emily?
Kind of two sides about that too is I feel like a lot of the time we look at the Pharisees and we're like, oh, like they knew what they were doing. But I think a lot of the time it sneaks up on us. And I think one way that it does it for us present day is a lot of traditions. Because, I mean, the church that we are in now has been around for how many years? And we have a lot of things that we hold to as tradition. And it's easy to put those acts above truly worshiping God.
Yeah.
And I think we convince ourselves a lot that, oh, well, I'm not doing that. I truly care about worshiping God. That I can never be a Pharisee. Whenever they probably were thinking, oh, I'm so holy, I'm worshiping God.
Yeah.
Not realizing
That's true.
they're putting themselves above God.
Yeah. They don't even realize. I mean, we can get that own point there. We don't even realize what we're doing. We don't even realize that. Did you have another point? You said two, and was that one or was
The
it?
sad point was like how we do it. as
Oh,
Pharisees.
okay. Joy?
When she was talking, I was thinking about the word denial.
Yeah.
I was sure I was never going to be like those Pharisees.
Yep.
And I have done it.
Yep.
Many times.
In denial.
So basically what Emily said is sometimes we can put worship in front of God and worship.
Yeah. Just worship to other things
Yeah.
and worship. Well, or yeah, what
we
she's
can
saying.
put
Yeah.
I mean, think about in what we do.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get so hung up on it's got to be the traditional right way.
Yeah.
And if it's not that, then it's not right.
Yeah.
Well, is that truly worship?
Yeah.
Because worship becomes our idol.
Right.
Or take it to the world side.
Yeah.
They put worship as in the big pomp and circumstance and the show as worship.
Yeah.
It's gotten in the way of true worship. Truly, kissing the hand to God.
Yeah.
And really serving in the reverent attitude.
Yeah.
So worship can get in the way of
Worship. Yeah, now I got what you said. But that's true. I mean, things like tradition and personal preferences, we're so caught up on those things. And the other way around, where it's not true, but new and all the new stuff or whatever people are doing, make it flashy and fancy, and it's more about putting on a show and putting on a production and all that kind of whatever. Both sides of the spectrum can be put in place of worship, right? We're too caught up on that. It needs to be right where you're not even focused on why you're doing it at that point anymore. I think that's what Aaron's kind of getting at. We're too focused on that to where, do we even know what we're still doing? Good point.
Or sometimes we are so set that it's got to be something different, that if it's not something new, then it's old and stale and not worship.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hard balance.
It is a hard balance.
It really is.
It is, but something that you said, that you keep bringing up, the true worship, the true kiss in the hand, and true focus of God, and at the end of the day, we push all that stuff aside. If our true motive, if our true mindset, everything we're doing is for the benefit of worshiping God and connecting yourself with God and giving Him the glory, that's what it's about. It's not about all these other things. If we are truly focused on All the definitions we talked about a couple weeks ago, all the things that go into worship, that's what it's about. Joy?
One of the things that I've been struggling with is what Jesus said in his prayer, thy will be done.
Yeah.
I always want mine.
Right. Always.
And it's better.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what I want better. You know, nobody else knows me like me.
And I want it so bad for so long.
Right.
Jesus even said,
Yeah.
thy will be done, and look what it cost him.
Yeah. That's back what Bryce was saying, you know, how we are selfish people and put ourselves in place of, you know, and can be our biggest hindrance of worship. And yeah, we're selfish beings. I want my way. I want it to be done. You know, nobody knows. You're not giving enough to God at that point. Anything else on that? How can we stay away from these habits? It's what we've been saying. Go ahead.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is doing self-reflection. I mean, we're at the new year, everyone's making New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm going to go to the gym, and I'm going to dedicate this time to go to the gym every day because I have to build a habit. And so making sure that we're filling our time with the good habits and doing introspection on if the habits we have are truly worshiping God, or are they worshiping worship? Are they worshiping ourselves? Are they worshiping someone else in our life? What is the center point of why we do what we do?
Yeah, that right there is the very reason I put on the fourth point on page 1. You know, reflect on your relationship with God and analyze where you are at. Think about what has, you know, like you said, new year. What does my last year look like? What did I involve myself with? Did those things help my relationship with God? Did those things hinder my relationship with God? There's never a bad time for self-reflection. I mean, there's never a bad time for self-reflection. Always analyze, where am I at with God? And pray to him. Sometimes it takes, God, where are we at? You know, what's going on? Help me figure this out. Help me understand what I'm doing wrong or what needs to be changed. But we always need to analyze where we're at, how we're doing. And we should ask each other that every once in a while as well, I think. I think we need to have the relationships with one another to say, hey, where are you at? How are you doing? How can I help? You know, where do you need to be? What else should we focus on to stay away from those things?
Associating with people with life concerns,
Exactly, yeah.
interest, praying more, and just focusing. When you like plan
Yeah,
a time to just stop and count
yeah,
the blessings that you have.
yeah,
It doesn't, I mean, it doesn't get to be a habit if you sort of have a specific time. It doesn't have to be at 10 minutes after 9, I'm going to do this.
right.
Just say, you know, in the morning, in this, sometime in this area of time, I'm going to stop and do this. And having a time and a place to stop and to reflect and to pray is such a good thing.
Yeah. And like you said at the beginning of that comment, surrounding yourself with the right people. I'm very influenced by people. By the people I'm around, I can be heavily influenced on my actions, the way I talk, all those kinds of things. And I reflect on my life and look at myself. And when I'm with people that God has clearly put in my life for reasons, and with my church family and with other people I've known throughout my life, I always feel better. I act better. I'm in a better spot. And it makes me feel good. It makes me feel that it's like this right place to be. And there's a great accountability system in that way. It really is. Because I look at myself on the way I've acted with different coworkers throughout the years, or people at school, versus people at church, or my family who is growing up, you know, in the relationship with God and all that kind of stuff, to where I'm a completely different person at that point. But I'm a better person for it. And I think that's why God has put each other in our lives like that. Jim?
You know, God hated idolatry.
Right.
There was thousands that killed for that, and they could go much more even to burn their children in fire than out of love. That's really bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what you're getting at is do whatever it takes to be on the right side of not having idols. Taylor?
I don't think that all of these are bad, so maybe it's not necessarily stay away
Balance, yeah.
So, like, we talked on Sunday about sports, and, I'm not really a red and white, I'm more of a black and gold.
Right.
When does it become obsessive and excessive?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with watching the game.
Nope.
But when are you obsessive?
Yeah.
I put more, maybe not stay away, but finding a balance.
Yeah. It's a good point to bring up on it is true. We need to find balances in different things. To stay with sports, for example, on Sunday morning, am I waiting for Ethan? Come on, hurry it up, man. Colts are playing at 1. You know, they're not worth watching now, the later half of the season. But is that your mindset, or is your mindset, hey, I'll be able to enjoy that when the times come. This is where I'm at now. This is the focus now. There's that balance, right? And that could be, you can insert anything in there. And I think, I like the point that Taylor brings up. We don't have to put in our mind that all these things are bad. And I think that's good to bring up. But balance, what does balance look like? How do we implement balance? All those kinds of things I think are fair to ask.
The Ecclesiastes talk in chapter 3. There's a time and a place
Yep.
for everything. And through that whole thing, it's a balance.
Yeah. All right, I want to move on and get to this last question. We have 6 or 7 minutes. What does it say about our priorities if we do not take time to love and to worship God? What does that say about us, Emily?
I mean, it just shows where your priorities are.
Exactly.
I could never say, oh yeah, me and Zach have a great marriage. Oh yeah, what do you guys do? Well, we don't really talk to each other.
Right.
We don't really see each other. Well, I see him twice a week.
Right.
That's not a great relationship.
Yeah.
It's not a priority.
Does that show you guys mean something to each other? And, I say that and talking about myself. But yeah, does it show hey, this is an important thing in my life? Or I put this, this is something I have to get done every week or every day. Priorities show what is most important in our life. So if you don't take time to prioritize worship to God, is it fair to say that we don't prioritize God? We don't think God is, I don't think I need him in my life. I don't think I need to recognize and praise him. I don't think he's done that much in my life. I think that's, I think he should be the number one priority of your life. How does worship as a life dedicated to serving God affect our priorities and motivations? This was Bryce's question. He added that in there. But it was a really good question. How does a life dedicated to serving God affect our priorities and motivations?
We're going to be centered on God and doing his will rather than our will.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that'll show pretty easily that the things that mean most to us in life are going to be centered around God. Are going to be centered around our relationship with God. The people I hang out with, the things I do. And we talked about work, and you can be a great steward of God and a great child of God in your work atmosphere. You can. And you can make your work about serving God. Brace and I talked about that last week when we were discussing this lesson. You can make what you do in your life centered around God. Anything you do centered around God. Brace?
I think that ultimately when we grow in our relationship with God to a point, there are aspects of our life that are ultimately done in dedication to God that we don't even really think about as worship.
I think so.
When you look at Matthew 25 and Jesus talking about the separation of the sheep and the goats, the sheep were clearly doing things that Jesus saw as being dedicated to him, which we would call worship.
Yeah.
But they were doing it to other people, and they didn't recognize it as being anything toward Jesus. So in their mind, it wasn't really worship. But because they were serving God by doing those things, because they were honoring him, it could be described as worship.
Yeah.
It's acts done in response to God's worthiness.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's ultimately where God wants us to grow is there are a whole lot of aspects of our life where they are worship, even though we don't think about them.
Right.
We talk about going to worship. Well, there's a sense in which we're worshiping
All the time.
a whole lot of stuff we're doing
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
If it's done in response to God's worthiness
Yeah.
and in dedication to him.
It's hard to think, in my, you could say something like what you do, like how are you serving God by working on HVAC units? I'm serving a person who's in a need of something and they can't do themselves, and That's the mindset you have to have. You're serving others and putting on a smile on your face and encouraging other people. And times where even, if it's super hot outside and they haven't had AC for 2 days or whatever, and you're there to encourage them, help them, and that can be a worship to God.
In Colossians, when I do everything I do to the glory of God,
Yep.
is that not worship?
Yep. And it's hard to do that in a lot of things we do, but it's supposed to be that way. We're supposed to have our mindset that way, Margaret.
You should do what you do with zeal.
Yep.
And your worship is zeal, do you work with zeal?
Yep.
God requires that you do that at night. In your life, you pray more effectively. You set an example
Yep.
that, and you're aware that other people know that, you should not have to tell them you're a Christian. They should know that.
Right. I like that. They should. We should be setting an example every day on this is how I live my life, and they can tell what kind of priorities you have in your life. They can tell what you've used your life for. So I just try to stay focused. Hollis's hiccups were the cutest thing I've ever heard in my life. So, well, thanks for your attention. I really enjoyed this lesson. You got Brace again starting Sunday. So there's questions back there. So go ahead and pick those up. We'll start those on Sunday.